Hi there and welcome. Today is Friday, which can mean only one thing. It is time for your weekly top-up of oenological nonsense poured out for you by myself, Bert, who just so happens to be this week drinking whiskey. And the reason being, it seems I'm sympathy teething with baby Bert. Some of my wisdom teeth are coming through and it's rather painful. Whiskey is a great way of numbing that pain. But I'm not here to talk about whiskey, I'm here to talk about wine. One of the things I wanted to cover relatively early on into the vlogs, because I think it's a really important thing that you guys get to understand, is the structure of the wine. There's so much jargon that I'll be spurting out and that other wine professionals and other people interested in wine will be talking about, and that's things like, the level of sugar, acidity, tannin, body, alcohol, and they are the very foundations of the wine. Think of it like the flavor profile is the fixtures and the fittings of a house. It's all well and good that it looks nice, but if you don't have the foundations there, then it will crumble in on itself and you'll end up with nothing. And these components are the key components to making sure that the wine stays upright, stays strong. So how do we pick them out? Let's start with sweetness. So sweetness, when we talk about it in the wine industry, we talk about the level of residual sugar that's left in the wine, which is the amount of sugar that's left after the fermentation process takes part. And it's often confused when I talk with a lot of people about the flavor profile. It's often confused with this idea that you might taste something that's really ripe, something might taste of lychee or of passion fruit or of pineapple or of oranges, all of these sweet components. And so our thought process goes straight to this idea that that's the sweetness we're talking about, but we're not. It's quite easy to pick out a level of sugar. You will taste it. Think not necessarily of what it tastes like, but just think about the sugar that is coating your mouth. And obviously that has varying degrees of sweetness, from dry to off dry to medium sweet to medium dry, all the way to lusciously 6 petunias sweet. And each one, you will, if you try a range of varying sweet wines, you'll get to gauge exactly which level they're all sat at. Next up is acidity. Acidity is one of the, if not the key component, I believe, in a wine and its structure. The easiest way to test the level of acidity is when you've had the wine in your mouth, whether you choose to swallow, if you're at a tasting and you spit it, you'll notice that from the top and the back of your palate all the way to the bottom and the front here, you'll start to salivate. And the more intense that saliva coming through means that there is a higher level of acidity. And if it's a slower process and there isn't a great deal of saliva coming through, then that means the wine is naturally low in acidity. And this is, again, not necessarily needing to be confused with alcohol. So alcohol can often make you salivate, but if you find that as you do so there is heat, then that is not the acidity, that is the alcohol. If your tongue almost sort of starts to burn a little bit, that's when the alcohol is there, and often more often than not, that's a very bad sign of alcohol integration into the wine. You should be able to tell the level of alcohol just by a slight bit of warmth, but if it gets hot, then that's not what we're after. And obviously, the lower the level, the less that sort of weight of heat is there, and then obviously the more and more it is there, the more and more, the higher the level of alcohol, as I'm sure you'd be aware. Next we have tannin. Tannin is what happens when you leave your tea bag in a cup of tea for too long and you get that scum on the top. It's through leaving the juice in contact with the skins and stems for a little bit longer, or how quickly or how aggressively you might press the grapes down during that process of the vinification. The way to taste it on the palate is there'll be a sort of grippy texture. You almost sort of think something you could kiss off the teeth and off the gum, something that you can lick off, that texture. And there's varying degrees of tannin. You have wines that are naturally low. In reds, things like Pinot Noir, things like Garnacha. But sometimes these wines can have additional tannin, which might be added through like an oak aging, because oak integration will add a level of tannin too. And obviously the more harsher, the more aggressive that tannin structure is, you'll realise that it has a higher level. And then there's the body. The easiest way to taste the body of the wine, I personally feel, is to hold the wine in your mouth and almost sort of chew your way through it. And if you find that your teeth are able to sort of just cut through quite easily, that's going to be quite light. And then obviously the harder it is, the more sort of push you feel against your teeth as you're bringing your jaw in, the more weighty that body is. I think that's a really easy, surefire way of tasting or testing how big the body is or how light the body is. And all of these things, as I say, are the key components to your wine. And I think if you're able to start to pick these components out alongside a flavour profile, what it will really aid you in doing is helping you to appreciate your wine on a higher level than you were before. Because although things can taste good, if you're able to appreciate the things that make sure that not only does it taste good, but it feels good, then it can only be a good thing, right? So I hope you take that on board. Buy yourselves a bottle of wine, experiment, take some notes. If there's anything else that you'd maybe like to hear me do and cover in the future, by all means, put a little comment in and I'll see about getting round to it. Have a great weekend. Chin chin and cheers. Take care.